It being 3:05, we will call the meeting to order. Present for the committee, Roy Gott, Mark Perka, Mike Summer, and Tom Toll. Review and approval of the prior meeting minutes, September 24th, 2025.
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I think this will be a reasonably quick meeting here. Information gathering just briefly, unless there's anything that anybody has to report for either the Goldsboro or Winter Harbor side. Mike did mention he got a mailer, I presume it was, from Spectrum offering, well, Mike, go ahead and say it again.
Well, they were offering free 1 gig fiber optic connection as long as I would purchase a certain number of phone lines, wireless phone lines. But at least there's competition out there. I did have Spectrum cable here before, so presumably I'm on their address as an active customer. But the only fiber optic cable that comes here is hooked up to Fidium right now.
Yeah. But, certainly, like I said to Mike, I think the hope is that somebody else does run fiber in here. So we do have competing networks to hopefully keep
Yeah.
the pricing down. So that's not that I want it to be Spectrum, but any competition is better than no competition.
Mhm.
So, uh, all right. So as far as information gathering, since we last met, I did approach the town governments, and both the management and boards in Winter Harbor and Gouldsboro seem to be in general support of the idea of having a digital skills effort replace the broadband committee, or pivot. I mean, I don't think they're wed to one way or the other. I feel like there's a sense from this committee that we feel this has served its purpose, at least with this group of people. And I don't disagree with that. If people want to be a part of what happens in the future, that's certainly, I think, a positive thing. But I think this group has run its course, and uh, it seems to be the case that there was no interest in just making a summary donation to the two communities with the remaining funds. They would rather see it put to use in this digital skills vein, because it's not a meaningful enough amount to make a difference. It's just going to go into general fund and get forgotten as surplus. And so uh, that is what I have for information gathering. Does that people agree?
Agreed.
Yeah, I don't have any other information, just an observation that I think digital skills is important. I know that Dorcas is active with individual patrons who come in and need help. I happen to be involved with installing an EV charger at the extension building a week or two ago, and there was a group of folks from the library and volunteers trying to get the big screen TV in that building up and running for a movie showing that's going to happen next week. And there were some basic skills being taught.
Hmm.
Um, Heather Smolinski seems to be taking the lead on that. Don't know if any of you know Heather, but uh, seems to be developing as a lead digital literate person on the Dorcas side. And I think she volunteers at both libraries, unless I'm mistaken.
Okay.
Yeah, I see the libraries as being the logical place for exchanging information and expertise and whatnot. It
Mhm.
just seems like people are very comfortable going there, and I think the libraries are receptive to that. So
I think the only challenge I would see is if the libraries don't have the staffing and resources to do much with it. I mean, course, Ruth is at both libraries. I know she used to be just at Winter Harbor. I imagine there are probably a few people that may split their time there, like you mentioned, Mark. So uh, I think I don't know what form the digital skills work takes. Um, again, we know there are other resources out there, but they don't necessarily fit the mold of exactly what the people in these communities are looking for. So, I mean, to me, that's why it's nothing that we have to do, but I think whatever it might be worth if we can, it might be worth us going out with the mailer, like saying the broadband committee's work is done, but there's some potential for digital skill building um, to happen after the fact. So I still think we might want to do the mailer sort of as our last act here, but it doesn't have to be us. We could just draw the line in the sand and say, okay, let, let's let the towns find some volunteers to carry on this work. Because I don't think if we just say, well, I don't know that we necessarily can just give it to the libraries, the funding that we have, and ask them to do with it. They may not have the people to do with either.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think that's an unanswered question, though.
Mhm.
Um, just based on my observations here on the Prospect Harbor side, I think there are people who have the skills and the interest and would be willing. And as I mentioned, Heather Smolinski is an obvious
Right.
individual for that. But
Do you
there
have
are others,
contact
and
information?
unfortunately, without Ruth, um, a directed grant to the two libraries for the purpose of developing digital skills might be an appropriate disbursement of our remaining funds.
The reason I say I'm not sure because this was grant money to us in the first place,
Yeah.
and I don't know that we have the I mean the right technically maybe even I don't know if it was supposed to be returned. It was never called back or clawed back
Mhm.
uh, following the expiration. So I just I don't know that we have
The ability to transfer it.
the ability.
I know that when in other nonprofits I've been involved with, if and we never did have to shut any of them down, but we did investigate the possibility that we might at some future date have to shut down the nonprofit. And even the directed donations that had been given um, didn't have to be given back. They had to be transferred to another nonprofit entity with a similar mission.
Okay.
And you could argue, and I'm not an expert in Maine law, that that's exactly what we would do if we would give the grants or yeah, funnel the money to the library for a specific purpose that's consistent with our digital imperative.
mhm.
I would wonder, would it go to, because right now it's being held by the town of Gouldsboro for us.
Mhm.
Um, would it be something, would we give it a portion of it to each library? Or I think there needs to be a discussion with the library uh, people and so forth to see, A, if they're even interested in taking on this work.
Mhm.
Right.
Uh,
And not only that, but to your point there, Roy, is that would they even have the ability to do something with it? Do they have the right folks involved to be able to, I think what we're talking about here is to put on some sort of classes, if you will, or some sort of, trainings.
or at
Do
least
they have,
facilitating,
yeah,
bringing
facilitating.
it here.
Yeah.
Even if it's not something that's developed internally, maybe it's reaching out to Hancock County Planning Commission or RSU 24 Adult Ed. Maybe it's getting them to bring some of their content here for
Right.
people who haven't got the desire or ability to go further abroad. Even though Sullivan's not all that far, but
Right.
Maybe there's some tailoring. Like I still feel very strongly that we should do some outreach, whether again it's us or a next incarnation of whoever's doing this work, to see what the specific desires and interests are in the community, because that's always something I've heard is a mismatch between the expectations going into an adult ed class, for example, and what they got out of it.
Right.
So to me, that's something that I think is be very important to do, and then see if we can either uh, locate and bring in the appropriate programming or develop something that meets those needs. Um, to me, that's the way to make it of value to the communities, is make sure it's tailored to them.
And there was a point made earlier about how, both libraries are, familiar and comfortable spots where people are, comfortable in going. So
Mhm.
I think that would help a lot of draw as well.
Yeah.
I
And
think I think
I would,
your point is valid, Roy, that the offerings that are out there often do not meet the needs of the individual who has a specific problem to solve. What I've seen working most successfully in the libraries is somebody shows up and they've got an issue. They don't know how to use their printer, they don't know how to prepare a resume, they don't know how to go online and access their Netflix, and the volunteers who have the skills can address the specific needs of that individual, as
Mhm.
opposed to let's get 10 people in a room and teach them how to search on the internet.
Right. And I think it could be, for example, you could have, if you did some initial gathering of information looking for what are the topics you would like covered, not necessarily specific questions, but general topics, but also let people know that, maybe you save out a quarter, to a fifth of the time, whatever's allotted. If you're planning on having like an hour long or hour and a half session, keep some time for uh, maybe it's not a general topic, maybe it's a specific question like that. Like, I'm trying to do this specific thing. And then those questions that are maybe not general interest, but very, you know, very pointed could be raised, and people can see what's going on and get the help they need in that same way. So have a structured part and, more of an open part at the end for those types of things. Again, that's really not even our decision to make, but that's how I would envision something like that being useful. And so, I mean, certainly my recommendation would be that as we draw our work to a close here, maybe involve the town. I mean, certainly try and rely. I wanted to get somebody here from the library or libraries today to maybe see what their take was on it. Unfortunately, we don't have anybody joining us. Um,
Did
and
Ruth specifically show interest, or was she thinking that somebody else would step forward?
I did not get the impression that Ruth, I think she was interested as a concept. I didn't get the impression that she necessarily felt she would have the capacity to
Yeah.
do it.
Right.
Unfortunately, she could easily speak for both libraries.
Mhm.
And even if she doesn't have the capacity, she could at least conceptually support some venture
Right.
and put
She
it out
did
there.
say she did say she couldn't be here today because she was going to be doing work at the library and it'd be difficult to.
Yeah.
Um, so maybe that's a separate
Mhm.
discussion, but
Right.
um, so
Roy, what I think you're suggesting is we put out a feeler to the communities to get feedback on what.
to try and constitute, I don't even know that it necessarily needs to be a distinct committee, but to try and constitute maybe a few individuals in a group that would be comfortable leading leading the digital skills effort. So maybe that's in conjunction with the libraries, or maybe it's separate from them. I don't know. I would like to get some information back from the libraries to see, is there somebody in your organization that would be interested in this kind of work? Heather Smolinski, you've mentioned, Mike. Do you have, I mean, she works with the libraries?
She volunteers at both libraries.
Okay.
And the only reason I thought of her was because I observed her helping somebody with some digital skills just a few days ago.
Okay.
As a potential next step, the Dorcas Library should be open tomorrow. I can stop by and talk directly to Ruth
hmm
and push her a little bit harder on, would the libraries be interested in taking over this
Right.
activity? And the libraries could also be a source for the survey you want to do.
Right.
Right.
Survey
It's
or
not
focus group,
unusual for us to have a survey at the desk of the library, and the people who come through and use the computers there or access the library can weigh in on that particular survey. I don't think we should spend our money with a mailing to, all the residents of Goldsboro and Winter Harbor, because I don't think we get that much of a feedback. But I think a survey at the libraries, what are the needs? What would you like help with? Could um, illuminate the discussion.
I
I
guess go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, my only reservation about that is that I think there's definitely a group of people who make use of the libraries, and I think there's a very large group of people that probably don't.
Right.
And if
And
our
they're a subset of the people who don't know what they're missing
right.
in terms of broadband access.
And so I think if we leave it to just that, I mean, if our goal is to try and reach as many as possible, I mean, the mailings weren't that expensive, and I've made a note here to get our final balance from Brianna, but I think a it would be a good thing in conjunction. The other side of it is too, we can always utilize the newsletters. That's
Mhm.
a possibility. Uh, we do need to put a final submission into the town report, saying that we have wrapped up our work. Uh, I don't know that that needs to be a huge submission either, because again, our work went out with a whimper instead of a bang, because the work was done for us. So that doesn't need to be a crazy involved thing, but I would say, we have about 100 people in our email list. We can use that tool as well. It might not be, I mean, I would certainly like to do a mailer, but it doesn't have to be. That's just my thing. I think there's plenty, given what we've spent and what we still have. It was probably a couple $100 for the mailing, and there's still a few $1,000s left. So I don't think I would want to purposefully reach as many people as possible. And, it may go in the mail and go straight into the trash when it gets home for a lot of people. But I think for those who need it, I would rather go that extra step and just try and let everybody know that this might be something that could be useful to them. And it might even hypothetically have the effect of bringing more people into the library and library visits and usage that had never considered it before. I'm not saying it would, but it'd be an added draw. So, uh, just my thought. But
Well,
again, that does.
if that amount of money I thought we were talking about a few $100s left over, not a few thousand. Um, so, the mailing might be something that would reach out more. Um, it's certainly true that there's a significant majority of folks that live on the peninsula who don't use the libraries, and a significant portion of that group probably doesn't understand what broadband access could do for them.
Mhm.
Right.
But those are also the people who probably wouldn't respond to the survey. So
Right.
it's
Probably a lot of in the same bucket. Yeah.
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 You
I
know,
mean,
one thing
go ahead, Mark.
I was just saying, I was thinking that, if there's going to be like some sort of a survey at the desk we talked about at the libraries, what type of topics would you like to see if there was some possibility of some learning opportunities? If that's going to be a survey, that same survey could be digitized and could go as part of the mailing so that someone could just go online and go ahead and fill out that survey, or if they happen to walk into one of the two libraries, the same survey would be at the desk. Just a thought there. Could have it both ways.
And,
Right.
and at the town
That may reach
offices
more people.
and at the town offices.
Yeah, good point. Absolutely.
Well, and as far as a survey, I don't think this needs to be any kind of an in-depth survey either. I said the way I'm sort of envisioning it being a very simple, it might even be able to do, I wouldn't want to spend money on postcards, but you could probably get away with it as a postcard even if you were in that space. I think of it as something, we throw out some examples like how to, like you said, how to get your printer working or how to apply for, what is it, re-registration of your vehicle online, or have you ever, throw out some examples of things that we know people have struggled with. And that would be a case I think would be good to involve the libraries for that because they've probably gotten a few of those questions. Like you said, Mike, you have Heather was helping people how to connect uh, your how to connect a TV to your laptop or something like that to show whatever. Um, Throw out a few examples, and the survey part of it is what are some topics that you would have liked or would like to see brought into um, some digital skill building here on the peninsula,
Mhm.
and just leave it open-ended, and they could return it again to the town offices or the libraries. We did the town offices before. Um, and also, yes, have like a link or a QR code on there that people, I mean, if they can do a QR code, they're probably pretty good on the digital skills in the first place, but
Mhm.
you never know. And so, we could have a digital version of it as well. Uh, things like that. I think that's, here's the hook. Here are some examples, and what are some things, and we'll try and bring this to the peninsula. So that, to me, I envision it being a very simple thing. And you could always have forms like that just left over at the town office and at the library for people to fill out in case they say, oh, I didn't realize that. Oh, I want to fill this out and do so right there. That's just how sort of I would envision it happening in my mind. But and then whoever's leading this work would then look at what resources are available, HCPC, whatever the other organizations are, uh, adult ed, to see what matches up, and then try and put something together that fills those gaps. That's how I would envision it, but that's me.
So would the next step be that we create like a little draft of a example of what we think a survey would look like and kind of distribute it around and for us to put finishing touches on it, or?
I I don't know that, like I said, I don't want to keep people in
No.
this group, if they have a desire to move on and have some closure with this work. I think that's work that could be done by whoever takes up this charge. I think our charge is really to find who might be interested in continuing and leading that work, if it's not us.
I think what I'm hearing there is the scope of work has changed.
Mhm.
And, from a project perspective, the broadband portion is pretty well wrapped up. And, this is kind of like a turning point, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, Tom, maybe you would like to be a part of that digital skills thing. I'm not sure. Uh, you,
No.
so, um, Mark, maybe Ellen wants to be a part of it, where she's involved with the library. I don't know. But I can
Right.
envision it being different people, not because I want to see it be different people, just because I don't want to have the people have think that I have the expectation that we're just going to keep doing this work because we started with the broadband.
Right.
There's no assumptions here. I personally would be interested in continuing it because it's kind of in my field a little bit. Not necessarily as a leader of it, but
But a
whether it's
resource. Yeah.
as a participant, a resource consultant, or something like that. Yeah, I could see that happening. Uh,
Well, how would the group feel if I spend some time talking to Ruth tomorrow?
I
She should be
encourage
here
you to do so.
and
Sure.
not concluding anything, but simply to feel her out as to where she thinks this could go from the library's perspective.
Mhm.
And she may need
She
to
would have
take
some
it
good
to her
insight.
board. Yeah.
She'd have some good insight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I stopped by, it was just a brief discussion and let her know that this is something that the committee is looking at and invited her to the meetings and anybody who wanted to join from the library. So it was very low pressure. I wasn't trying to say, "Hey, Ruth, I got
Yeah.
something
Oh,
to
by the
fill up the
way,
rest of your free time."
Yeah.
Um,
I'll be
so,
gentle.
yeah,
all
don't
right.
don't start off with, hey, since you have nothing to do.
Mhm.
It's okay. She got some computer talk in with me too, so it went both ways. So,
Right.
does that seem to be? I mean, does that make sense to people to find others to
Yeah,
carry on this work?
certainly. And I think, if Roy, you said you would maybe check with Brianna and see what the exact amount of money we have is.
Yeah, I can
I
actually.
can check with Ruth and kind of take her temperature as to what she thinks what role the libraries could play. The libraries could simply just be, a venue and other volunteers
Right.
take over this digital enterprise. The libraries host gatherings for all sorts of things from board games to poetry readings. So we can just, check that out and then compare notes by email if you like to talk about next steps.
Yeah. Let's just see here. I had requested. hmm, where is it here? That was in September, end of September. We had over $9,000 left.
Good.
So that's why I feel it's a big enough pot of money that it could be used for some good, that we don't have to try to
Mhm.
just get rid of it. It's still a very valid amount. And so, um, I don't think no, of course, nothing would have come out of it since then because we haven't met to approve any expenditures. Um,
Right.
so yeah, um, I'll reconfirm that with Brianna, but that's where we're at. And I can ask I can also ask around the town offices as well if there's somebody that they know who would also be interested in that kind of work. I don't think they're going to have any better sense of it than Ruth or other people already connected with the libraries. But it doesn't hurt to cast as wide a net as possible. If this peninsula was full of digitally literate individuals, we wouldn't need a digital skills committee in the first place, I guess.
Very true.
So not to discount anybody who is digitally literate in the peninsula. So let's see what we get out of your discussion, Mike, and any follow-up that we can have with the town officials, and see if we can find somebody willing to take this work on.
All right.
I want to send out a wrap-up email, and maybe it will be not all that different from the discussion that we've just had. If it works for you, I would say that we're, glad to have had the opportunity to work towards bringing broadband to the Schoodic Peninsula. A summary of what actually has happened, and our hope that in the future other providers will also enter the market with fiber to ensure competition and competitive prices. And we could also say in there that we are hopeful that we could say, I don't want to put a dollar amount, but we could say there's some funding that remains with which we would hope to see some digital skills work continue. And maybe in that email, ask also to see if there are people interested in pursuing that kind of effort. Would that make sense?
And this would go to our mailing list? Is that what you're thinking?
This would go to our mailing list, which only, like I said, has about 100 addresses in it, but it's a free ask at least.
Yeah.
And
That makes sense.
So we can do that. And I think it would be very similar to what I would think to put in our final report for the town reports.
Right.
Obviously, it may be worded slightly differently, but the substance, I would imagine, would be the same.
Right.
Of course, the town reports should hypothetically be going to every household.
Well, I don't think they get mailed out anymore, do they?
No.
I think they stop.
They stopped mailing. They're just available at the town offices. Well,
Yeah, they don't mail them anymore.
Goldsboro, they are.
Okay. They still mail them here in Franklin, so. I can imagine the postage for that was horrendous, but any case, I'm sure there's a good number of people that pick those up.
I don't know what the pickup rate is, but at least when it was in everybody's mailbox, people would read it, or at least a lot of people. I think more people read it then than they do now.
Yeah.
I mean, at least it's now available online.
Yeah.
But
I can't imagine that there's a lot of people that choose that online version specifically over the printed version. I don't know.
Yeah. I have no idea.
That's just a suspicion in my mind. It's like I have a digital edition of the newspaper, but I still prefer to have the physical newspaper in hand when reading. I think there's a lot of people in that boat. So
Barnes and Noble is not going out of business, are they?
So far. So that's the email, and I don't think we need to have any more meetings, really. We're just I don't know how we wrap this up. We can certainly have a vote to conclude the work of the committee. it occurred to me, how do you approve the last minute's meetings once the committee is done? It's like,
Because then there's always another one to approve that one.
yeah. So, I'll obviously put together minutes. They'll just remain in draft form, obviously. But I don't feel like we need to have another official meeting to do what we've discussed, or to follow up on what we've discussed here today. Does that seem good to people?
It
Yeah.
does.
Works for me.
Okay. So why don't we have a motion to conclude and disband this committee following our adjournment today?
So moved.
Second,
Second or third.
third.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. So there shall be no next meeting. And unless anybody has anything else they want to raise, we'll just continue over email with whatever we gather on this work, and we'll go from
Yeah.
there. And I'll put together those pieces and circulate them to you so you can see it before I send it out.
Yeah, and just a question, I guess, if we've decided to disband, how would we formally at some point disperse the remaining funds without the committee existing? We could, have a vote by email to disperse the money, but do we have to
Right.
remain in existence until then to make that happen?
Well, why don't we also then have why don't we, because it's going to remain in the custody of the town of Gouldsboro until somebody decides what to do with it.
Yeah, it's just a formality question, but
Right. On the presumption that there will be some entity that will pursue this digital skills work, we could have a motion to convey the remaining funds to the new entity or group when it convenes, and until that time, for it to remain in the custody of the town of Gouldsboro. Would that work for you?
It is a little bit of a sticky wicket here
Yeah, it
It's-
is.
because
Yeah, it's
you don't know who's getting the money and
with the it's one of those word emotions,
how about this? How about if we back up and not vote to disband, but agree that we will, as a committee, decide upon the funds disbursement by email vote after this work is done, after these discussions proceed.
I don't think anybody's going to be
I
investigating
doubt
our
we're going to be in
activities.
trouble anyway, but it's just
Yeah.
a technicality.
All right. So Robert's rules would say we need a motion to reconsider our previous motion.
So moved.
Okay. And a second?
second.
So committee's back
Alright.
in service.
Committee's back in service.
Yeah. Committee,
It was a
So-
pretty short retirement.
we're going to have an email vote. We're going to move to have a vote on email for the disposition of funds, the remaining funds. And upon the conclusion of that vote, that we would disband, or do you want to leave the disbanding off the table for now? We could also approve minutes in that email if we're voting.
But then
on
there'd be
the-
more minutes afterwards.
No, it's just an email.
I think we could certainly vote to disband by email after we take that
Yeah.
last action.
Okay.
Right. We could disband. Hey, we did it once successfully already. You can do it by email. The real final time. That was just practice.
Okay. So I don't even know that we need to have a motion on this, then we can just simply, it'll be a part of the record of this meeting that we will not have any further meetings, but we will have an email vote, which will determine the final disposition of the funds, with the goal of them being transferred to a group working on digital skills when that comes about. And we can, in that same email, vote to disband the committee. And I would say we could vote on the approval of the minutes. And I think the email themselves can be sufficient record of the actions of the committee at that point, as to not require further minutes being generated.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Yep.
And we don't need to set a time frame on this vote, but I would like to have fleshed out the idea who's interested in the digital skills work, within a month. I think that would make sense. Does that work for everybody?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, in that case, we are not disbanded, but we can be adjourned if there's somebody that wants to make that motion.
I move adjournment.
Second, the adjournment motion.
All right. All those in favor? All right. Thank you very much. And we'll be in touch.
All right.
Good to see you. Thanks.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
Roy.
Yep.
Yep.
Have a good one.
Thank you, Roy. Bye.
We'll get you that recipe.
Excellent. You got my email.